And then I'm fascinated by the money standpoint. Like if you talk about these big collectors, are there a ton out there that, maybe their personal collections are valued at, say, more than 50 grand? Are there a ton of those you think out there?
I think you'd be very, very surprised. I don't think people start as a collector. I think people, they find something cool, they maybe buy it, they try it, they see someone else who's a collector and says, "Oh, that's interesting," and then they find themselves like, "Oh my gosh, I have a collection," or "Oh my gosh, I bought a box, now a case," or I'm going back and I'm buying a full set. Now I'm buying graded, or now I'm grading myself. And I think what you'd be surprised to say is, I could see there being, 50,000 people or more with a $50,000 plus collection. And I would
Wow.
go out on a limb and say that probably more than half of those people don't even know their collection's worth 50,000.
Jamil Muhammad and Jeff Cardozo dive into the hobby, which is sports cards, trading cards, as well as all other collectibles, right now on the Mealy Pod Hobby Podcast, live from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
All right, everybody, it is that time once again for the Mealy Pod Hobby Podcast, coming to you from the Meldon Law Studios. Meldon Law, we won't back down. Jeff Cardozo in Spurrier's Gridiron Grill here in the podcast room, our normal home, but Jamil, of course, has a second home, so Jamil Muhammad will join us from Mealy Pop, South Carolina this weekend as he is just doing his thing. He's out and about, and certainly a lot of trade days and different things that we will look forward to. But I know, Jamil, a lot of people were looking forward to college football getting going. Of course, you had week 0. That doesn't really count, although Gator fans liked it because Florida State lost. But
Yeah,
now
definitely.
week 1, of course, didn't go well the Gators' way. Didn't go well for Florida State either. Certainly went well for the Miami Hurricanes. But I think when it's all said and done, and as much as we'll talk about sports, but it's just good to have college football back, to see that atmosphere around here. I'm sure up there for what the Gamecocks and what Clemson has. Like there's that buzz in the air of being able to tailgate, interact with friends, and just be a part of something again is really awesome.
I was at a card show, Jeff, up here on Saturday, and it was it's pretty busy card show. It's in a kind of a tight area, so people are on top of everybody. It's always really packed. And Clemson played Georgia at, I think it was 1 o'clock, and I'm sitting there. It's crazy busy. We're doing all sorts of deals. And then I look down at my watch. I'm like, "Where's everybody gone?" It's 12:30, and everybody was just cleared out for that game. There were a few guys who were watching the game in the card show, but it's just one of those things, right? I mean, it governs a lot of Saturdays for the next 12 weeks. It's what a lot of people love to come together and do. I know. I was actually not in Gainesville this weekend. We had trade day at our shop, the first trade day I haven't been there for, and I was talking to a bunch of customers that came up from like Miami and different parts of the state, and the shop was just chaotic. So it's kind of a cool environment with college football starting, Florida, Miami, just the pandemonium of what that is, and then having a trade day. So I pretty much created the most chaotic event and just headed out of there to South Carolina. So I let the team deal with it. No, it was great. They did a great job, and I heard a lot of cool things happen from that. So we got that, and right around the corner, September 14th will be Hobby Rip Night, which is another fun event at both shops. That if anybody is in South Carolina or in Florida, come on out to our shops there. We're gonna have a really, really cool event with Fanatics and Tops. But yeah, college football's here, man. It is full force, and as you know, fantasy football comes around. NFL starts on Thursday and into this weekend with week 1, and so football has arrived. Is what I would say.
Well, and the neat part is just, obviously the hobby that we talk about here on the Mealy Pod Hobby Podcast, but now that sports are going again, there's so many big names in the sports world that are still just fans of all these things. I mean, just the amount of people that were here in Gainesville, former Gators, former NFL guys. Javon Curse was here. The Freak was out doing Mr. Two Bits. On the other side, Devin Hester, who's in the Hall of Fame, is just roaming the sidelines for Miami. So I think it's just really unique and cool. I mean, you've got Zion just coming into the shop a couple of weeks ago up there in South Carolina. So just, as much as we sit here and maybe try to admire or just, I guess, are just so enthralled with all these like big name guys, they just love the same stuff that we love. They love being a part of games. I mean, heck, if you're in the TikTok world, like my daughter, she was infatuated because Alex Earl came to town. She's this big TikToker who's dating one of the Miami Dolphins, and they fly up in this private plane just to come to Gainesville and go out to the bars and goof off. So it is a really fun time just to be out there and about. And it does, it's finally, obviously COVID is removed, but I can't even imagine not being a part of it like we had that one year. It's so awesome awesome to just be getting after it again and enjoying everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the camaraderie, the community, just the excitement, right? I mean, the energy that you can kind of sense. Our town, doubles in size, and just the amount of fervor there is for football. One thing I was taken back by, Jeff, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this too. I don't know if I've ever seen an opening college football weekend with as much athleticism. Like, and what I mean by this is the plays that I saw. I mean, they were like the best plays I feel like of the season. I can't tell you how many times I heard that's the best interception you'll see. That's the best catch you'll see. You talk about the USC receiver making those catches. You talk about the guy, I forget what team it was, with an interception where he jumps up one hand, does a 360. It's a crazy play. The guy from the corner for Georgia with another amazing interception that he has. So the athleticism this weekend and just seeing all the jukes and throws and interceptions and hits. I don't know if we're on another level, but it just seemed like it was amped up even more from all the highlights.
It's like your boy Kanye when he sang that song, like bigger, faster, stronger, all that stuff. That's what all these athletes are now. It is. But again, you got to give credit to a lot of these strength coaches, and certainly, kids are training now at 10, 11, 12 years old, and then they kind of specialize in these sports, but they do it all the time, and they work hard to be the best of the best in the elite. So now as we think about even from the hobby world, yeah, sometimes you're blessed with size, and, I'm sure we'll talk about Wemby here in a second as you talk about excitement and anticipation for something. But, some guys are blessed with that, but some guys work really, really hard. They aren't the biggest, but they bust their butt trying to become better, and even just to play at the collegiate level. So to get to that point, you're a really special athlete, and then to make it to the professional level, it's just, it's 2% of the entire world that get to be a part of some of these things. So I think that's why it's fun to trade, fun to admire all these individuals. But yeah, certainly, for these kids that go out and try to replicate some of this stuff. I was out coaching these kids this weekend on Sunday, and Michael Harris had just made this great catch up against the wall and, basically vertical, like laying out like this, and had all the kids like, hey, throw us like we're trying to rob a home run so we could be like Michael Harris, all this stuff like that. So it is really cool to be around it all.
Yeah, I mean, those embodiments and those things that, young kids get excited about with these players. They see them come in every time into the shop, and to be able to like talk to a kid on their level is another thing that I think people don't realize, where the adults and kids, it can be kind of, daunting for a child to talk to a grown adult about whatever, but sports is this breakdown, right? And it gives them the opportunity to kind of express and, even have confrontation. If you might say, oh, I don't like that guy, what do you think? And then, just getting the chance to talk with kids and again, the excitement they have with, Michael Harris, over the wall catch, and then they try and embody that. It just oozes nostalgia. It just oozes, I think, fandom. And of course, that tends into the hobby. So now they want the Michael Harris cards and those kinds of things, which is beautiful. You brought up Wemby, by the way, switching gears from the physical sports to the cardboard. Wembanyama, the Topps Chrome product was released last week. Yeah. And the big card that has been had a bounty on for a while now is this Superfractor 1-of-1 card. So he's got this Topps Chrome. It's kind of the quintessential card outside of the Panini Prism Black. 1-of-1 is the big dollar card. So it was hit. It was a smaller account on Instagram from a gentleman who hit the card, posted about it, and so now everyone says like, well, what are you going to do with the card, right? Who are you going to sell for the bounty? You're going to keep it. And it's kind of, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm starting to see more of these like marketing elements of it where you're getting all these auction houses and pundits and social media people who are saying like, I'll put the bounty out, I'll buy it. But the truth is they're doing it for like, marketing push. So the Wembanyama Chrome Superfractor was hit. On top of that, the USA Triple cards from Topps were sent out this week. And those cards had Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James on them. One person out of the 588,000 cards that were sold, which equates to, I don't know, $5.5–6 million in sales. One of those cards is going to go to somebody, and then there's plenty of bounties of that. A friend, who owns Grand Slam Collectibles, his name is Nathan. He's put out a $500,000 bounty for that card, as long as the autos aren't smudged, he said. So it's one of these things that it's wild to think that we're at this place now in 2024 where not only are people putting out these huge amounts of money for cards, which causes more fandom and pandemonium from people. But it's life-changing money. You know what I mean? These Willy Wonka golden tickets are really a real thing. And it's exciting to see. A funny thing you mentioned, we've mentioned sports earlier, and how these guys love to do and be where the action is. Giannis Antetokounmpo went out on his Instagram and said that he'll put up $150K to buy that card. So I mean, it's fun to see this kind of interaction that we're seeing now between fandom. I think social media has helped break those walls down and allowed more people to connect with these players. So we're living a unique time, man. It's definitely I think increased the fan experience because of technology and because of what these players now have the access to do.
So yeah, maybe we'll have some hustlers out there. Your boy's putting up $500,000, but if Giannis is only at 150, maybe you get him to 250 and a bunch of autograph stuff and season tickets, floor seats to watch him and LeBron play. You could probably negotiate with Giannis a little bit if he's getting into it. That'd be awesome.
Some Greek food, some what does he like? McDonald's chicken nuggets when he won wasn't it when he drove through when he won? Yeah. So yeah. I'm sure you could negotiate with Giannis a little bit. Speaking of just a good ambassador for the sport, awesome guy, worldwide kind of guy. When we're our guest today, actually, we're going to talk to is going to share a lot about just like the worldwide phenomenon of Pokemon, which is a whole other demographic and hustle and world of cards that doesn't really get a lot of chatter about.
Yeah, Zach Browning, not Zach Brown like the band that all of you might be thinking, but Zach Browning is probably going to be even cooler. I think from at least I'm anxious to talk to him because the stories you've told me about just from the cards and putting sets together and all the great the things that he's done, and even getting to go to Hawaii a couple of weeks ago. So really looking forward to that. So I would encourage everybody, even if you're not a Pokemon fan, you're going to learn so many things by this interview, and it's going to probably make you want to go out and get some Pokemon, or at least hey, you've got the kids in the neighborhood, your kids are playing with each other, go out and try to help them find something, because it's certainly a world that I'm not familiar with, but it's a world that is just as big as any other of these hobbies out there.
Yeah, there's times when people come into the shop, both shops, and they'll just say, I found this, or I had a storage unit, I cleared this out, and all of a sudden there's all this stuff from the 90s, right? And you might think, oh well, Jamil, the baseball cards aren't worth a lot, but the Pokemon cards are, right? So it's one of these things that it's pretty infantile, right? It's 30-ish years coming up, I think, on the Pokemon anniversary. It's a pretty young hobby, but for stuff to be selling, first edition boxes in the hundreds of thousands, six figure marks, for Logan Paul to have a chain with a BGS 10 Charizard at one of his fights that's worth about $1 million plus. Wow. For him to wear I think he had the Pokemon Illustrator card was the other one that's valued. I think he paid 6.5 or 5.5 million for. These cards that are these are real numbers. There was a Pokemon Snap collection that when Nate came on from Fanatics Collect a few weeks ago in one of our episodes, we talked about them showcasing it at their booth. It was the only set known in the world because the Pikachu card had never surfaced. And so that set has got to be, I would imagine, the 7 figures just because of how rare it is. So there's these things when you say those numbers, you might be like, Jamil, there's no way. But the truth is, like, it's been this way, and it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher in what people are paying for the rare Pokemon.
Yeah, so you can certainly stay tuned to that. You can watch it on Facebook and YouTube. We're on 39 different platforms from a podcast standpoint to be able to check that out. And maybe you'll want to check out that storage unit. Go grab your MC Hammer pants from the box, and then there might be some Pokemon cards in that same box that Mom put away back in the day. All right, we'll take a break. We'll talk to Zach Browning when we get back here on the Mealy-Pod Hobby Podcast.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
We welcome you back to the Mealy Pod Hobby Podcast. Jeff here in Gainesville, Jameel up in South Carolina, but through the magic of the internet, we get to talk together and bring you another great guest. And this one's going to be really fun for me because obviously I'm starting to learn the card world and understand different things there. But I'm a '90s guy. That's when I was the heyday of the high school days and all the cool stuff happening and all the great TV shows. But that's when Pokemon came out, and me, the idiot, didn't collect Pokemon back then. But so now I'm infatuated on just the value of these cards and everything else. So Jameel tells me he has found the best of the best when it's all said and done. So Jameel, take it away.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have a treat today with this one, listeners and watchers and viewers of this podcast. So we've talked so much about sports cards, and Jeff, I've been educating you and getting you trained up. Now we're gonna throw you a curve and enter into the world of TCG space. So TCG meaning trading card game. And I got to know this fella. His name is Zach Browning. About a decade ago. I can't remember the exact time, but he was a great resource then. Education, knew everything in the ins and outs of vintage Pokemon to modern Pokemon to autograph Pokemon and all the things that we've come to love and have really just garnished a lot of value. And he's just been a friend over the past years, and we talk Pokemon. We meet up at a lot of the events, Collecticons and the National Sports Card Show, and we see each other at all these different places. But he has been just the quintessential professor, I'd call him, for Pokemon. So I think Zach's on virtual, man. Let's see if we can get him in here.
Yeah, we got him.
There he is.
Thank you guys so much for the kind introduction. That was way too kind, way too generous. I think I've been just very lucky to have fell into a hobby that I loved as a kid, and then that the hobby's kind of supported itself over the years. And I think we just have a lot of good people that just look out for each other, that just want to build each other up. And I feel like getting into sort of the social media piece was almost a little selfish on my side, because I was a private collector for many years, and then I started putting myself out there because I wanted to complete my collection. I was literally like, grade your cards, sell them to me. I want to complete these sets. They don't exist yet. And so it was kind of this odd sort of turning of events where now the hobby is so much bigger than it is now. And, Pikachu doesn't get hurt. So Pikachu's always ready to play.
Yeah, Pikachu's he's got the good ankles and the good knees. So that's always the little adage they say when we talk about investing in Pokemon. But before we get into all that, man, you are a traveling man. I know you're going to be at Dallas. You're all over the place, man. You're everywhere. And you just got back from Pokemon Worlds. You were in Hawaii. So how was that? Did you get any cool pickups from that event? Tell the people a little bit about that event and why you went.
Oh my gosh, Worlds is one of the most pure events of the year. You have people that only go to one event a year, and it's Worlds, literally from the entire world. And a lot of times you go just to see friends, tell stories, get caught up on the hobby, what happened this last year. So for you guys go to the National quite a bit, and it's a lot of vendors. Worlds typically doesn't have that many vendors. It's a little taboo to sell, but you get a lot of the people who do business in the hobby just come to meet and hang out. And so there are a couple plays you can make at Worlds as far as just buying some of the merch from the Pokemon Center, which is fairly limited, or buy the trophy cards from from the winners or the staff cards, this and that. But there's very limited sort of business plays. It's more just about catching up on the hobby, telling the stories, enjoying your friends, and just kind of rekindling before you take another, year heading back to.
Zach, so this world is, certainly new for me too. And I'm fascinated just by the fact of, when Pokemon got started there in the 90s, was it about playing the game and doing that, and it evolved into this, big card world? I just why has Pokemon caught on? Why has it sustained the value? And maybe it's as easy as, gosh, the Simpsons are still on TV after all these years. So is it like the same thing? Like what is that all about?
I think nostalgia never backs down. Nostalgia is relentless. It gets you in your veins, and it gives you the goosebumps. It just wants you to, just calls you back. It says, what'd you do as a kid, between the ages of 8 to 12? What were your happiest moments, and where do you want to go back to? I collected sports cards as a kid. I remember getting a King Griffey, card and trying to pull different cards here and there. But then eventually getting a Pokemon, and it's like all your friends are doing it. The chase was massive. It was this global thing where, some people were haters, some people loved it. And then, Yu-Gi-Oh came out for me, and I just kind of moved on. But once a lot of these people, they get money in their pockets, they get out of college, they're trying to figure out what to go back to. Some people go to cars, some people go to watches, some people go to wherever that pool may be. But so many people come to Pokemon and they find their place and they stay there, and it's kind of amazing. I think we have a really good community that really lifts everyone up. The education's unreal. I've never been in a hobby where people just want to help each other. Like they'll tell you the play they're making to make money, and then they'll be like, "Hey, this is how you do it. Come. Let's teach you everything." It's this wild hobby where I do think the average education of a typical Pokemon collector, investor, what have you, is so much higher than it was 10 years ago. And it's because the hobby really embraces itself and kind of tries to lift each other up. And when you're in a community like that, it's really hard to leave.
Yeah, I mean, makes total sense. And since Jamil said you were at the Worlds, it has me thinking. So, how many collectors do you think there are worldwide? I know it's probably really hard to guesstimate that, but you run into so many. I think it's certainly a thing that so many people, even locally, that I hear that are doing it. And then I'm fascinated by the money standpoint. Like if you talk about these big collectors, are there a ton out there that maybe their personal collections are valued at, say, more than 50 grand? Are there a ton of those you think out there?
I think you'd be very, very surprised. I don't think people start as a collector. I think people, they find something cool, they maybe buy it, they try it, they see someone else who's a collector and says, "Oh, that's interesting," and then they find themselves like, "Oh my gosh, I have a collection," or "Oh my gosh, I bought a box, now a case," or I'm going back and I'm buying a full set. Now I'm buying graded, or now I'm grading myself. And I think what you'd be surprised to say is, I could see there being, 50,000 people or more with a $50,000 plus collection. Wow. And I would go out on a limb and say that probably more than half of those people don't even know their collection's worth 50,000. And you have people that collected in 2010 or 2008 that, they have gold stars, they have level X's, they have some of the ultra rares, and those cards have increased in value from when they bought them at $1 a card or $5 a card to maybe $100 a card if they're mint condition, and they may have 100 of them in their collection that they think is just, "Oh, that's the old Pokemon collection. No one wants that." Then you go get it valued by a dealer or a store or PSA or CGC, and you find out that, wow, this is worth 50 grand. I had no idea. It's just been sitting in the closet. Think of the baseball fines, that keep coming out of the closets as these guys are passing on. It's you're going to have that with Pokemon for the next 50 years.
I can't tell you how many times, Zach, people come in the shop with those binders and I just look at them and I say, "Do you know what this is worth?" "Oh, 100, $200. It's like maybe back in 1998 or 2004, but like, let's go through this. And another big thing too is, you're educating, like you talk about the condition of cards and how people handle the cards over the years. These are cards that were playing cards, right? Initially, when people open packs and kids open packs. So it's so interesting to see the growth of it all, how people have entered into the grading world, how many people grade cards now, which I know you're big into. But one thing I want to talk to you about is unopened product, seal product. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, so many people in Pokemon, the nostalgia factor of opening up a pack from back in the day, opening up a box from back in the day is just the pinnacle of Pokemon collecting, I feel like, and then there's a certain way that we unpack a pack and how we look for the holofoil, saving it as the last card, and the communal effort. All of those things are so cool. But unfortunately, we have some daunting news recently in the sports car world as well as the Pokemon world with these CT scanners. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on where you think what you've already seen already with the wax market, where it might be headed. And then, of course, this tech was originally tested on Pokemon boxes, before it even got into the sports card space. So I'd love to hear your take on it, where it may go, and what you might think Pokemon might do to protect, future boxes.
Yeah, the funny part about the whole like CT scan piece is like those guys that did it weren't like trying to create the market they created. They were just trying to prove a theory for like something else they're building. Now they're like, "Oh snap, we have this business that like works." And so like with anything, the hobby has to adapt, the hobby has to grow. You have to assume that anything you buy is going to be CT scan now. You can't go into it like unwilling. But at the same time, I mean, I was talking to a buddy. I was like, "Why don't I come out with UV protected film to put on the top and bottom of packs? I'll sell it for $5-10 each. I get it made in China for 2 cents a piece." It's like one of those things where you just have to adapt. So someone will probably come out with that business to protect your packs from being UV scanned. But at the same time, like you have to assume everything. I mean, look at the sports stuff. I mean, who's keeping someone from scanning a $2,500 flawless box, to see if the 101's in there? It's just, I think the manufacturers have to adapt. Pokemon, maybe like 5-10 years ago, started putting weighted cards in the pack, so you couldn't weigh the hollow or the not. You couldn't figure out what's a good pack or not. And so at the same time, if it's going to materially change everything, it costs little to nothing to add, some protected in there. I think what's not being talked about is how like dangerous like CT scan is compared to like X-ray and everything else. Like the people doing that, they don't have protection. Like they're going to be
Yeah.
infertile, they're going to get cancer. Like it's going to happen. So I'm a little nervous for the people running that business, but I think they're going to make a lot of money in the short term before they maybe tighten up the controls a bit.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that world, and Jameel has educated me a lot on vintage, and certainly keeping cards protected, and you think about the 52 Mantle and all these great cards. I know there's not a 52 Pikachu out there, but like what is vintage? Like are you calling me old now because I was like a boy in the 90s because I'm this guy? Like, what does vintage Pokemon mean?
I was a boy in the '90s too. It was weird as it depends on who you talk to. Because I was talking to someone the other day, they're like, "Oh, XY vintage," and I'm like, "XY vintage? Like, no, no, not a chance, man." And so, like to me, vintage kind of goes to like, the eras of Pokemon. You have the WotC era, you have EX, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Diamond and Pearl. I kind of say vintage stops at Diamond and Pearl, and then you have Black and White, XY, so forth. That's kind of the modern. That's the full art era with the texture. The card you pull out of the pack, where the common cards look very similar. That's kind of where I call the split. That'd be around maybe the 2011, 2012 sort of range. So everything before that, I would consider to be vintage. And then Pokemon, our time frame is much shorter, just because we've only been around 30 years. 30th anniversary is coming up. Well, they're going to start releasing stuff next year, but I think it may be the year after. And so it is weird to say vintage, but at the same time, what's the definition for vintage? Isn't it like 25 years? Is that like the legal definition? Do you guys know?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. We have to look that one up. I mean, if that's the case, then there's a lot of things that I've experienced that are vintage that I never thought that way. So, but I mean, that's the world that we live in now, right? I mean, it's people, who would have thought something from 1995, 96, 97, 90, those years would be vintage, right? I mean, we grew up in that era, but now maybe that's dating us, Zach, so we're gonna have to have to analyze some things there. But I'm listening to you, and I'm just thinking about the whole Pokemon world, and I'm thinking about what you just came from and what how you're involved in the community. So at the biggest levels. I'd love to chat a little bit about the global TCG community. Thinking about I got a chance to go to London Card Show this past summer. I was there for vacation and just kind of by a whim got a chance to go to it. And I thought I was going to see a ton of soccer and F1 and other things. But I was surprised I saw some baseball, basketball, football cards. But what was overarching and what everybody was doing out there was TCG, specifically Pokemon. And I love just seeing that side of that, in England. I follow just different places across the world. It really is this global community, this global hobby. And I don't know if you could say that for sports cards because it's not really so much in, let's say South America or Africa, things like that. We're not seeing cards, to the level we see Pokemon. And so I'd love to hear kind of how you're seeing it just Pokemon expanding to become that like truly global hobby, if you would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always just been global, whether we knew it or not. I think Pokemon's very relatable to so many people in so many different areas. Whereas, sports, football is mostly like America, at least American football. Soccer is sort of broken out everywhere, but the soccer card market hadn't really taken off until, the last like couple of years or so, maybe the last 5 years. And so Pokemon has kind of always existed. There are people in Australia that have the same stories I had growing up in the Midwest that happened back in 1999 through some of the best purchases I have are from guys in South America that have sealed packs of promos from 1999 that we've been buying every year for the last like 10 years, and they have the same stories we do from Brasilia, Argentina, just Colombia, all the way through. And the European markets are very interesting because there are guys out there that say they started in 1999, they were a judge, they opened a card shop, they're getting stuff directly from Wizards of the Coast, and they were selling, they were playing this and that. There's a big German collector that comes to a lot of card shows here in the States and brings cards over. And it's interesting because the market in France, the card's priced so much higher that whenever I go to Paris to go to a card show, I can't buy anything because the cards are so expensive. But then, you can sell stuff and you're like, you're paying 100 euros for that card. It's like, dude, come to America, come buy 100 of them, stock up, man. And so there's these tremendous arbitrage opportunities because Pokemon is so much just potential, just so much like to bridge. The people haven't figured out the international shipping, the customs, the VAT, like all these different things. And if anyone could figure out the bridge between the different continents, I think there's just guaranteed money on the table. But for now, it's like the passion's there, the demand's there. The way some of these things price in other countries, it's really a big opportunity for someone if they want to figure it out.
Zach, I'm intrigued because at the beginning you started talking about maybe what got you in was putting sets together and trying to figure all that out, and kind of then getting on the internet. So, and Jamil's told me this vast registry of these sets that you have. So, when you think about that, what are some of the rankings of these registry sets that you have? Like, is it the best out there?
I think a lot of people may say that. I try to stay as humble as I can in the hobby because I would love to see someone, I'd love to have 25 people in the hobby accomplish what I've accomplished. And so what a lot of people don't realize is as I was building the sets, I started with the main sets, Jungle, Fossil, Base, and this and that. I was actually helping PSA build those sets too. And so if PSA didn't have a Gym Challenge set, I would say, hey, let's build a Gym Challenge set. And of course, when they built it, I already had it completed. So it would just complete. And so when you look on PSA registry and they had let's say they had 20 sets, I would be in all 20 because I was the one helping them build all that. So that's kind of a little bit of the story lost. And, they have hundreds and hundreds of Pokemon sets now, and I'm not a part of all of them, but I'd say for a good 4 or 5 years, I think I probably had 50, maybe to 100 sets that were in progress. And I was number one because I only built the sets that I had started. So most of my collections really just Wizards of the Coast, from first at Base all the way to Skyridge, which ends in 2003. That's when they lost the license and went back to Nintendo. For me, that was a very clean sort of cut. I actually stopped collecting on Expedition as a kid, which is in 2002. So to go an extra 2 sets to finish that off was a perfect fit. And a lot of collectors relate to that as well. That's when Yu-Gi-Oh came out. That's when people were going to high school. That's when things change in life. You start playing sports, finding girls, your priorities maybe shift a little. And so it's one of the most relatable pieces of the hobby.
Is there just like a really weird, like random card that took forever to track down that you needed to complete a set? Do you have any like quick stories like that?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I think the unlimited sets. So I did all the first edition for Pokemon, and then they have unlimited as well. A lot of people don't realize they're probably the same print run for each, but no one grades unlimited. Like you don't have to teach someone first edition. They just, they know, oh, it's rare, let me grade it. But unlimited, people are like, oh, I'm not going to grade that. It's not worth it. Well, some of these unlimited cards I was paying thousands of dollars for. And the last card I needed was Ampharos. I needed it for 2 years. It was probably like one of like 3 cards I needed for the last like bucket of like 10 years I was collecting this stuff. And it's like, man, why can't I find this card? I know they printed like 100,000 copies of it. One of them's got to get a 10 eventually. I that copy like 15 for a 9. And so someone comes up and they have it for sale. It's pop 2 and offer the guy, we started going back and forth. They're paying $8,000 for the card.
Wow.
And it's like a card, like fair value is maybe like 2 to 3K, but because I need it, because it's the last card of like a 500 card set, it's like, okay, let's just do the deal. Let's get it done. And I have to say, like, it's not a deal like I wanted to do just because of the price and stuff. But the moment the card came in, it's like the whole mindset shifted. It's like the goosebumps. I didn't feel the goosebumps until I held the card, until you realize the completion, until you realize the goal. It was almost like a negotiation before that because you never want to get gypped. You never want to be taken advantage of. And sometimes you just kind of feel that way when people know what your goals are. And then that feeling of completion, that feeling of just like a 10-year journey just kind of coming to a close. It's a feeling that I wish everyone could experience once in their life. Set a goal that can't be completed today. Set a goal that can't be completed this year. Set a goal that takes 5 years to do, and then work hard every day to get those 5 years till you do it. And that feeling at the end is like it's indescribable. Just the emotions is it wasn't something that happened alone. It was friends. It was family. It was people going out of their way to reach out, say, hey Zach, I know you need this card. Let's do a deal for it. When they probably could have listened to the open market, maybe got 10% more, 20% more. It's like those relationships are the only reason that this goal was completed. And by no means did I do any of this stuff by myself. It was definitely an effort by much of the community. So that's the part of it that makes it so special.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you're hitting on the hobby and the roots of what the hobby is. Whether you consider that sports cards, trading cards, whether it be video games, comic books, like the fact that people want to see other people do well in collections is what we need to get back to. I think in some regards, I love seeing in Pokemon how specific people, like you might say in sports, who do you collect, what team do you collect, who's your favorite player, blah blah blah. And in Pokemon, it might be a character, right? Or it might be a type of card that, is a full art trainer or whatever it may be that people like. Error cards, you see these people who meet at these conventions and they help each other out. So I know you've been a resource in a lot of ways to so many people. So number one, thank you for what you do. And I mean, just teaching people, because I think there's a lot of elements out there in Pokemon where you get a lot of misinformation. You've been a vital component to understanding wax and looking for, authentic versus non-authentic boxes, things of that nature. But the resource that you have been has morphed into a podcast that you have, right? You have this podcast, Next Gen TCG, YouTube, Gem and Pokemon. If anybody wants to go and see a funny video, there's a video that Zach has when I first got to know him with a box that I found. And I think it was in Seattle or Washington somewhere. I think you might have been in Chicago or somewhere at the time. And you wound up flying there to get the box. I was kind of helping the middleman it all to work together. And then it did finally come to fruition. And this was a first edition booster box that you bought. And there's this video where you have this little map, which I remember you drew this map and you showed like an arrow of where everybody went. It's like the early YouTube days before editing and stuff. So go check that out on Zach's channel, because you'll learn a lot just from that. But I bring all that up because I'd love to hear like what you think is next for Pokemon TCG and how the community can continue to evolve as it really does become this global, element to this global hobby.
Yeah, it's so crazy because I was not a fan of like Black and White. I thought the X and Y series, like the full arts, were kind of cool. And I think Pokemon is like really like taking it by the horns, and like they come out with tag team, and, so creative to have the two Pokemon on one, and they have the alt arts with the artwork of Umbreon and Espeon is just like gorgeous. And it's like Pokemon really isn't on a decline at all. It's still on this uptick. And it blows me away how many people just have embraced modern. And I think the modern market is totally separate from the vintage market. How like you have millions of people that just want to collect just the sets that come out today, and they could care less about the rookie. They could care less about the original stuff. And I think the Pokemon Company is doing a great job. They focus on the players, the playability. They don't care about the collecting side. And here's a question for you guys. How many collectible items in the past do you guys know that have succeeded that started as collectibles? Almost the most collectible things ever weren't collectible when they first started.
Yeah.
How many people have thrown out the Pokemon collections and now this is what they are? The 1952, that wasn't really that collectible when it first came out. No one really wanted it. They threw a bunch away, and now look at where it is now. So it's odd because a lot of people coming in now today that see these items as collectible. And so I do kind of question the return on some of these items. When you have a pop of 10,000 in a card and it's worth $500, it's like, it might be hard to really push the ticker a little bit. But I think the Pokemon Company's doing a great job. I think they need to keep doing what they do. I think we need to do more crossovers, like the Van Gogh Pika, the Mario Pikachu promo card, like any of that stuff. We brainstorm all the time, like what would be a good crossover. But I just let them keep doing the thing. They're obviously way better at it than I am, and the hobby's it's thriving in these post 2021 markets.
Yeah, no, I mean all of that is just. It's so true. Who would have thought, back when we were in the 90s that we would be talking about Pokemon in 2024, and this is part of our profession and what we do. And it's amazing to see you as the ambassador for this in so many ways. So excited to have you on. I mean, we could probably talk for the next 6 hours, 7 hours about Pokemon. You bring up Pop Reports is a whole other thing. And, maybe that'll be for the next podcast we have you back on, and we can talk more about how it's evolved. But we have this segment we finish every week on. It's a rapid fire segment. It's sponsored by Titan MRI. We call it the Mealy Pod Titan MRI rapid fire segment. So I have put together this was fun for me, this one, because I've been doing a lot of sports. So this one, when I put together, I kind of got to throw in some Pokemon and TCG stuff, as well as you'll see a little bit of some ACC talk here as well, involving one of your favorite quarterbacks. So are you ready for this rapid fire segment, Mr. Zach?
I feel like Titan MRI should become Titan UV here pretty soon. They might have a lot more business coming their way.
That's so funny. He texted me a few days ago. He goes, "What's all this up? What's all up with the card?" Because he collects cards as well. The guy who owns Titan MRI. Yeah. And I go, "Man, you don't want to get into that. It's trouble, buddy." So it's so funny.
All right,
cool.
Yeah.
Here we go. Starting out with the first question. So considering all generations, Zach, who is your go-to starter?
Oh man, I'd probably pick Charmander. Just gotta go Charmander. You got the Charizard, it can fly. It's it's a little basic, but it's easy. If Jolteon was a starter, it'd be a Jolteon.
Ooh, yeah. So that would be your Eevee evolution. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
How about thick stamp or thin stamp?
Thick all day, baby. You gotta have it thick.
He likes them thick. Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson?
I gotta go with the best quarterback. That's Lamar Jackson, of course.
Wow.
There we go. Some Louisville love. Favorite Pokey influencer?
Oh man, the first one that comes to mind is Gary Haas, mostly because he's just as positive as can be. He helps everyone. If anyone asks him for anything, he doesn't care who you are; he'll say yes,
Yeah.
no matter how big or small. I think he's just a good ambassador of the hobby. And a lot of people don't know this, but he's graded maybe 82, 84 the first edition base Charizards, PSA 10 out of the 124 pop. And he's a reason that Pokemon is what it is today. And so I think he gets a lot of credit, but he honestly probably deserves more credit than what he gets. So I love how positive and embracing and how much he pushes the hobby forward with no agenda of his own.
Yeah, I can confirm that he's awesome. Which Charizard would you prefer, the Neo Shining or the Skyridge?
I'm a first edition guy, but man, that that Crystal Charizard artwork is so much better than the Shiny. The Shiny is actually one of my least favorite artworks, but the Crystal Zard's pretty cool.
I just sold a Japanese version, is it Majestic Mountains, I think of that card, or Mysterious Mountains, and that card's even, I think that card's even cooler looking too than the English version. But they are, I mean, special card. All right, what's the coolest nickname you've ever heard for a Pokemon?
I always love the name Sparky for Jolteon. It's like you have like a little pet dog around. Oh, come on, Sparky! And then he just like sparks off a couple, and he comes and finds you. I thought that'd always be a cool little nickname.
You gotta get one of the Pokemon artists who drew it to inscribe Sparky on it. That'd be pretty special. I know you do a lot with autographs. So, all right. So that's the coolest. What's the lamest nickname you heard? And I've heard some lame ones with Pokemon.
Gina, because that was actually a name once I was a kid when I was playing the video game. I couldn't figure out how to change it because I just wasn't that bright back then, I guess. And so I always saw the name Gina pop up all the time. Like, man, this name sucks. Like, why'd they have this as the name? And I realized I must have mistyped it or something. So I never liked that name for a Pokemon.
Got it. All right, another ACC question, and we can all celebrate here in our losses. I mean, Florida had a bad weekend this weekend, but Florida State is the first team to be 0-2 in college football. So I know you're a Louisville guy. How about this? Lee Corso, Bobby Petrino, or Charlie Strong?
Man, I love Bobby Petrino. Watching him coach and stuff, it was like electric. He's obviously had his runs and stuff since, but when I was a kid watching him, like that offense was just so powerful and good to go. I think if Charlie could have just maintained his longevity and not fallen off, it probably would have been Charlie. I think his first year was awesome.
Yeah.
Such a player's coach. But Petrino, that was me in high school, just watching him coach and taking us to the bowl games. Going to those bowl games with my dad. And Petrino's on the field, like it's hard to beat that father-son. Just those moments.
No, definitely. Good nostalgia again, right? That's the key word from today. How many first edition base set boxes, Pokemon we're speaking here, have you ripped?
You're going to be surprised. One and only one. It's the one that you sold me or middled for me. Oddly enough, I knew that box was real the second I held it, but there were so many fakes in the market. I had like 4 or 5 friends buying $5,000 boxes, ripping them, and they were fake. Like I couldn't do that deal and not know if it was like resealed or not. And so we ended up opening it. Of course, it was real, and appreciate the hookup. But it was a magical moment because I should have kept that sealed. I knew I should have, but I couldn't risk the 10 grand I ended up paying for the box. It was a lot of money back in 2017. It was a lot to risk.
And it's crazy to think that a box was that much, right, at that price point, and it was a lot to us in our minds. To then think of a box today is, what is it, 150, 200, 250,000, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I think the last few solds are 200. I think it's actually going up a little bit, 210 or so. And they keep coming and people keep buying them. I think people are ripping them on stream still.
Well, you ripped one for 10, so you did pretty well on that.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. I owe you that one.
If Zach was a Pokemon, what would your name be? What would be the Zach Pokemon? What would you be called?
Oh my gosh, what would my name be? Oh man, I feel like I just use one of the old football names. Like, oh man, what was I called in football? Like probably like Buster or something, or like I don't know, just some dude. You're like, come on, man, like get it together, man. Just like get back out there.
I like it, Bustermon or something like that. I got you.
Yeah,
That would be we might need a petition Pokemon for that one. All right, so last question here. What is Zach's #1 prized Pokemon card?
For me, it's got to be an Eevee. I'm sorry, a Jolteon, no symbol When I was a kid, I pulled it out of the pack. The no symbol jungle cards are missing the jungle symbol. It's an error card across whole print run. I remember getting confused what set it was in because it didn't have the set symbol. And I actually had that card signed by the illustrator, who's very difficult to get to have signed stuff. She's never wants to appear online with her face. It doesn't do any public signings. And so she sketched an Eevee on the Jolteon, and then she ended up drawing the jungle set symbol in there. And so for me, it was like the illustrator kind of correcting the card for the kid who couldn't figure it out. And so meeting the illustrator, the artist is insane. Many of them are from Japan. They don't come to the US that often. And then the Pokemon Company kind of sort of banned signings in a roundabout way. So her signing cards in the future is like nearly impossible, or puts her at risk if she does. So to have that card in that moment, it's kind of one of those things that hits all the tickers in the hobby. And plus, it's your favorite Pokemon. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
Yeah, if you got a picture of that, make sure you send it so we can get that up on screen for our viewers. I think you have it posted right on your Instagram. I think I might have seen it before.
Yeah, I've got one next to me. I've got not that copy in particular, but I've got another copy that's cool. I ended up buying online.
Awesome. Well, man, listen, you have been a wealth of knowledge for people out there. I mentioned the podcast that you host. I mentioned the YouTube channel, other ways that people can follow you, because and the reason why I'm bringing this up is not only do I want to promote Zach, but more so, I think there's an educational element here. If you're looking into Pokemon, you want to get into Pokemon investing, you want to know about Pokemon cards from, error runs and prints and how much there actually is, you have just a wealth of knowledge in that. So let the people know how they can get that from the Zach Browning POV.
No, seriously, really appreciate it. Instagram is the place I'm the most active. I cross-post to Facebook quite a bit. And so I do a lot of Instagram stories versus the posts. So if I'm like in Hawaii or something, I may do like 30 posts what we're doing that day. I love the Next Gen TCG podcast with Tetra Ninja. He kind of keeps me accountable, keeps things coming out all the time. He's great at editing. The one thing I'm still in the no edit phase when it comes to videos. So I'm still working to figure that part out. And then I always like to promote the EliteForum.com. And so that's a great resource for high-end collectors that want to go, just read articles, tons of information there. A lot of information I got when I started out was there. I put some information out there as well too. So if you want to learn more about it, it's a great community to just meet other people.
Well, there you have it, my friends. Zach, you've been a treat. Thank you so much for being our first on episode 14 today, our first TCG guest. We'll have many more in the future, but you've laid the groundwork, and so thank you, sir. Appreciate your time, man.
You guys have been way too kind, way too nice. You said so many good things. I think too many, but I'm excited for your podcast. Once you guys do better, and can't wait for you to have more guests. I mean, there's so many great people in the hobby, and I'd love to kind of just grow your audience's, collecting sphere.
Well, definitely. Well, we appreciate it, man. You have some safe travels. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Bye. Take care, Zach. So really cool stuff there by Zach. And I think, Jamil, that's what's awesome is just you learn more and more each and every week about all the different things that are going on. And I mean, who knew on half of this stuff? So really cool. And I'm ready to come in the shop and buy at least a Pokemon pack now.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised at how much some of these vintage packs are, Jeff. So you might have to dent in the old bank account with some of this stuff. It's getting to a point now where, and Zach mentioned it, a lot of people are opening these older boxes. So there's only a set finite amount of this stuff. And so do we, you look at we brought up 1952, right? So that's 70, 80 years ago. Well, what's Pokemon cards going to look like in 80 years or 70 years? How hard is it going to be? How difficult will it be for people to open up packs like that? So a lot of cool things, a lot of cool tidbits that he shared with us, and make sure you guys are going and following Zach on all his different accounts.
All right, we'll take a break, come back with more of the Mealypod Hobby Podcast right after this.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
This is Jamil, owner of the Mealy Pop Shop, Gainesville's home for collectibles of all sorts, including every single type of sports cards, whether it be Panini, Topps, Leaf, Upper Deck. We have it. Come on in, get yourself a box, a pack, get yourself some supplies, get into our breaks, get your Pokemon, get your Yu-Gi-Oh! All the other different kinds of TCG products that we carry and shop are always fully in stock. You can find our stuff on our website as well, mealypops.com. That's another way you can interact with the store, or you can just come into the shop. We're located off 39th Avenue by I-75 behind Walgreens and Sonny's. Stop on by. We're open every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can check us out on our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to see you. Come on out to the shop, have some fun, be a part of the card community here in Gainesville, and always go Gators.
All right, welcome back to the Mealy Pod Hobby Podcast. Great stuff there from Zach. Pretty incredible that, I know Jamil will probably expand on a little bit. We're coming to you from the Meldon Law Studios. Meldon Law, we won't back down. I am in the Spurrier Podcast Room. Jamil still up there in South Carolina, and you can see all behind him is that great wax. And we love this segment. It is brought to you by WaxStat, the easiest way to get real-time price comps on wax boxes and sealed products from your mobile phone or your laptop. Save money and time to get the best deal on wax by visiting WaxStat.com. And Jamil, I still can't believe that number. He talked about that Pokemon box that you helped him get for what, 10 grand, and then now those things are 200 grand just for opening up a box of wax. It's like every week I'm more and more fascinated by all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, that was a really cool. I mean, shout out to the ability of Facebook and YouTube and social media, because that's how that all happened. I found a box for sale in Washington. I did a lot of Pokemon through a Facebook group. I contacted Zach and told him, hey, there is this box. He trusted me. I trusted him. He flew out there. They set up a time. He inspected the box and then purchased the box. And at that time, $10,000, $12,000 for a box, whatever the total was. I think back and I'm thinking about that. It's like, it's only 6-7 years old, and that box then becomes a $200,000 box, right? I don't know much of any hobby. I mean, whether it be sports cards, comics, video games, coins, the TCG, there's not much at all within this that you can do that. And the TCG space, and this is why I think it's so valuable for our listeners, there is a huge investment element to this. And a lot of people will come into the shop. I see this with a lot of dads, and they're like, well, my son or my daughter is not really into sports cards yet, and I'm trying to get him out of Pokemon. And the thing I'll say to those people is, like, don't get them out of Pokemon. Like, let them learn this. Let them learn how to grade Pokemon and sell Pokemon. Get them on eBay. Get them on comps, wherever it is. Start using these markets to teach these kids, because, listen, the investment and the excitement that a kid may have in Pokemon, if you can channel that into even a small business savviness, for a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old, those kinds of things are incredibly valuable. That's, in a way, that's kind of my roots, right? I was very much into cards, the Beckett price guides, pricing my cards, boxing them, organizing them as an elementary school kid. So I didn't have Pokemon at that time. It come out right near, when I got into middle school. I was, of course, too cool to have Pokemon in middle school. But my brother, he was younger, and he was first, second, third grade, getting Charizards and packs and all these things. And, he's got a good little collection that he has from his childhood. So I would say, as you heard from Zach, it's expanding. There's even a world that in modern Pokemon, you don't have to buy the old stuff, but the modern Pokemon, there's a huge world in that. And if you start going into these events, Collecticon being one of the biggest ones that I can think of for Pokemon, we're going to be there in Atlanta. It's going to be in September. I think it's the third weekend, around the 20th there. There's a 3-day event that we'll be at. Attend one of those events. I mean, you will learn so much about Pokemon, and in the community of people walking around want to teach you. They want you to learn. They want to embrace you in that community. So if you can get off your high horse a little bit in the sports car world, I'm speaking as somebody who had to kind of swallow that pill and then realize, man, there is a world in the TCG space. And I just bring up Pokemon. Don't get me wrong. There's a Magic the Gathering world. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh world. There is a Lorcana world. There is a One Piece world. All of these cards that really have some significant value, and you can sell truly worldwide. I remember kind of going off the beaten path. I bought a Yu-Gi-Oh collection back in 2010 from a guy in Jacksonville, because nobody was buying Yu-Gi-Oh at a card show. And I just graded all the cards, put it away. One of those cards today is worth $35,000. You know what I mean? So it's just one of these things where there's spaces, and if you can learn it and put some education, and it's all free, right? Zach's providing free podcasts. We're providing free. There's so much information out there. set your mind to it, especially you young people who might listen to this. There's a big world in the TCG space. So don't just set yourself in sports cards. If you enjoy that or you want to diversify, learn that world, and you'll see how you can make, even more money in that from the investment side, and just enjoy it from the hobby side.
So with the wax now, I guess there is Pokemon about to come out pretty soon, right? A new release.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of hype in the shop. There's a new set coming out called Pokemon Stellar Crown, and it actually releases September 13th. But here's something cool, Jeff, and for our listeners that may not know this, a hobby shop that has a league, so that allows players to come in with Pokemon and play the game, run events, be welcoming, be safe, which, we check off all those boxes. If you do that, Pokemon then recognizes your store, and they allow you to have what's called a pre-release of the product. So although Stellar Crown comes out on the 13th, we're able to have a pre-release tournament for the event, for the set, through an event in our shop where we have, I think, about 45, 50 players come in. They get a chance to buy a little kit. It's called a Build and Battle box, which has 4 packs and then some energies and other cards. And what they do is they pay for the box. They get all these cards, and then they have all 30 minutes to assemble a deck. So it's kind of like the most fair way to play this game. So they have 30 minutes to assemble a deck, and then they do a drawing for who plays who, and they have this tournament. It's really cool. It's a cool experience, and I love it because I get kids in there, I got adults, I got dads and sons, I got everybody, all these different brackets, and they're all playing this card game for prizes, and they got a chance to open up the product before it even hit the market. So it's a kind of an early release, a pre-release that's really fun. And then on top of that, they allow the shop to start selling the product on the Monday of that week. So the 13th is a Friday, but they allow the shops to sell them on the Monday of that week, so that people can come in and purchase the product early from their favorite, card shop. So it's a cool release, and I'm excited to see just kind of what kind of cards come out of it that will be big.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, that's what it's all about. How many times would you say these little kids have come in there and kick your butt in the Pokemon game? They always school you?
Yeah, well, I just give up because they're just too good. Like there's a sense of losing, your masculinity, and then when a kid is beating you countlessly in Pokemon, I just have to give up, throw the white flag in. So we have a lot of fun with the kids in shop, and they're great. You know what I mean? They love Pokemon and they love the game. They also, it's cool to see, if you could kind of take a step back to see kids interacting, playing a game like kind of board game or a card game, where everything is so virtual now, right? So you can play Pokemon online, you can play all video games online. So there's something kind of sweet about the fact that kids can get together, adults can and they can play face to face, get to meet people in a really social setting that everyone comes and enjoys. And I think that's kind of like our trade days. We just had a trade day this past weekend in our shop. That's another opportunity for you to come out, buy and sell and trade, find out what people like, get excited about somebody else's collection. And again, we miss those things, I think, sometimes in the hobby. And so hopefully your card shops out there are doing it. And if they're not, move to Florida, South Carolina. We got you covered at Muley Pops.
Yep, there you go. All this got me thinking, and you talk about the investment piece and, trying to save boxes. And I've come to you for the last, 7, 8, 9 years and always wanted to get that one Bowman draft box just to, buddies or guys that I've announced or played with, or certainly, these types of things. But are there cards out there? You mentioned the Wemby 1 of 1 and then that bounty's out there. Like, are there still cards that are being searched for of 1 of 1s, or just these really big cards that maybe people are just holding back? Like, is that a big deal, or is it at least known in the hobby that those could be out there?
Yeah, so there is 2 cards that come to mind right off the bat. So I'm big into basketball. So let me talk about what's going on in basketball. So 2009-10, Topps Chrome came out. It was their kind of their last-ish release of basketball cards before the licensing got taken over by Panini at that time. And Steph Curry has a 1 of 1 Topps Chrome Superfractor that still has not surfaced. And so that's a card that it's well over 7. It's well in the 7 figures, that if it does get pulled, it could be in one of these, 2009, 2010 Topps boxes. So it's a card that's kind of got an allure to it. It's his best card, I would say, outside maybe his NT Logo Man card. And again, he's the quintessential. It's Steph Curry, right? I mean, everyone knows him. There's another one that in 2018-19, The one card that there is some thought that it's been pulled and the person who has pulled it has kept it away, but it's never surfaced, is the 2018-19 Panini Prism Luka Doncic Black Prism 1/1. And that's another card that people are, have theories about where the card's at. It might be in an FOTL box, might be in a hobby box, but it is not surfaced. And that's, again, another card well into the seven figures. So there are these cards that, 5, 10, 15 years, go by and they have not been pulled yet. And so with those wax prices of those boxes, obviously, there's always that in the back of someone's mind, could I potentially buy this to pull this? So that's always going on. And then, of course, I bring up the highest end cards, but there's still chases, lesser tiers that are still worth, 5 figures, even 6 figures in some of those as well that haven't been pulled. So yeah, maybe we'll have to get you one of these boxes, buddy. Have to try your luck.
Yeah, just try your luck. So I mean, realistically though, some kid could have walked into Walmart or Target and grandpa bought him a box for Christmas or something, and he had no idea what he got, and it just maybe lost forever. I mean, that could be lost something forever too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it could be lost forever. It could be in a binder somewhere. There was a recent, I remember I was big into the LeBron 2003 Chrome cards. And so in 2003, there's no superfractor, but the first lowest numbered card is a gold and it's out of 50. And so the gold LeBron 2003 Chrome refractor is kind of seen as like a very, very prestigious card. And out of the blue, there was a Goodwill find about 7 years ago where, and I'm sure many people listening might have heard this story, where a guy put a bid in on a Goodwill purchase of Chrome stuff. It was just kind of a lot. It didn't show anything specifically. He bought it, and then it had the gold refractor number 1 of 50 in the box. I think he paid $1,000 for it, and I think he sold it for a couple $100,000. So one of those things where this stuff is still existing. So whether it be garage sales, whether it be Goodwill, whether it be those auctions. I know a lot of people love to go to auctions, in the middle of nowhere because you never know what might surface at these events. Whether it be a storage unit find, I think that they are still happening. Someone may pass away, in their family, and it then goes into the attic and cleans stuff out, and they find a bunch of tobacco cards. I mean, these stories are still happening, and it's cool. It's cool. So yeah, the wax you can still rip. We got a few boxes this week, Jeff. Nothing crazy. It's kind of a light week. The Stellar Crown being the Pokemon release that I'm looking forward to. 2023-24 FIFA Select Soccer comes out, which is kind of a cool set because it encompasses all FIFA soccer teams. You kind of get a set with all of the players on that perspective. There is the 23-24 Topps Chrome Mega Boxes that come out this week, so that kind of cheaper version than the hobby boxes. We saw the hobby boxes last week on Wax that start out at about $550, and now they're I think at about $600. So you see that the change in pricing. So now people are saying, well, maybe I want to get into some retail Chrome Mega Boxes and not have to. And maybe I buy 7 of those. You know what I mean? Instead of buying a hobby box. So those are coming out this week. And then one that you'll appreciate, Topps Pro Debut Baseball, because I mean you're a pro and you've had some debuts. So it is the set that kind of highlights baseball players in the minor league. So here in Greenville, I remember seeing Marcelo Mayer, Topps Pro Debut autographs, Jaron Duran on the Greenville Drive, right? So these minor league teams and their autographs. So you're going to have a lot of prospects. I like Pro Debut a lot, and the one reason why I do is it is an incredibly fun rip. It's very, very affordable. I think the prices of the boxes are between $80 and $110, and you get lots of autographs per box and lots of just cool cards and numbered stuff. So if you are a value collector or a value hobbyist, Pro Debut is an awesome purchase. We got them on our website, MealyPops.com or scmealypops.com. We have 2 websites now for both shops. You can pick them up in stores or we can ship them to you. So check them out if you get a chance.
Well, jot me down for one of those then. That's you sold me, and you probably didn't even have to. You got me good. All right. Well, again, check out anything on waxstat.com. Save time and money. Get the best deal on wax by visiting, again, waxstat.com. Well, Jamil, again, thanks for the knowledge today. Really great stuff from Zach, learning everything about Pokemon. And hopefully for those of you that listen that, didn't really understand what Pokemon is all about, your kids probably collected them back in the day. So they've got to be somewhere if mom didn't throw them out or something happened. But try to find them and bring them into the shop. Jamil is fantastic. A lot of times that I just stop by to say, hey, there's always kids in the corner back there playing and goofing off, and I can't even attempt to go over there because I don't know what I'm doing. But they love it, and get those kids into Pokemon because, gosh, just from an investment standpoint, it can turn into something pretty special like Zach's collection did back in the day.
I think it opens a door, right? I think it's a gateway for people to get into the hobby at a young age and to understand how to open a pack, how to sleeve a card, how to grade a card, how to sell a card, how to trade a card. All of those elements I think are key. And so I am all for kids getting into TCG and non-sport stuff. We have a huge selection of Star Wars and Marvel cards. I had a young lady in the store here in South Carolina a couple nights ago, and she was going through our free boxes we put free boxes of cards for kids to get them, interested in stuff. Same thing in Gainesville. And she pulled out some Star Wars. So I immediately said to her, like, well, who's your favorite Star Wars character? And so she says Grogu. And so I was able to, have this conversation with her about Grogu, and she, lit up and she was excited about Star Wars. And, those kinds of things, I think you have the ability to get people excited, whether it be whatever age it is. So don't shy away from your kids getting into TCG. And also don't think that the Pokemon cards are worthless, because they're not.
Well, if this podcast or anything that interests you Growed on you, then you can check us out. Again, tell your friends about it. 39 different platforms. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube and a lot of other ways to go about it. So that was episode 14. Guess we can call that the Jack Caglione episode.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll get Jack on here at some point too. He's starting to get hot. Last 5 games, 4 of them multi-hit. So don't let him get hot, folks. He'll be tearing it up.
I don't know if you saw it, Jeff, on the Instagram, close it out. When we had Gronk spike the card, the top CEO, Mike Mahan, had a Caglione jersey on. Yeah. And so when Gronk had said, where you guys from? I said, Gainesville. And he goes, go Gators. I said, yeah. And I pointed to Mike Mahan. He showed off his Caglione jersey. And then Jack reposted it recently on Instagram. So it's good that the Gators are getting some love, especially him. And you're right. He's heating up. I can't wait to see how it pans out for him at Kansas City and when he does get called up eventually.
All right. Always great seeing you. Look forward to having you back in person next week.
You too, buddy. I'll miss you as well, man, my man.
All right. For Jamil, I am Jeff. That was the Mealy Pod Hobby Podcast.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you next Thursday at noon.